Okay, can you guys hear me now? I'll take that as a yes. Uh, let's see if someone else wants to try to say something so we can hear if audio from. But I'll take that means they could hear you. Okay. Well, again, okay, okay. Is it picking up anyone else now? I mean, no one else is talking, but yeah, I don't think that worked. It's really weird. Um, think I heard Brett, which not great. Um, set set to 100%. I guess I can go above 100. That might be dangerous. Is it still not working? Well, no one is saying anything. I don't see it come up on my screen either. Nope.
Oh wait.
Thank you, Adele. It is going great. Thank you so much. And sadly, it's not the NASL sound guy. It would have been so much cooler noise then. Yeah. So everything should be working now. Yay. Right. Table of contents. First overview by me, Erik Saller. Then graduation project by Jasper Kano Jacobs. Then overview of the Liquipedia app by Jasper Vogan van Riet. Then match 2 update by Andreas HTTP Alpha Bush. Then betting integration by Brett Evanescent Bledsoe. And then a Q&A section. If you have any questions, please post them in the thread in announcements on our Discord. It should just be a PiddyCon 3 thread there. Hard to miss. I take all the responsibility, of course, and all the blame. Right, so a quick 2021 overview. So we have we have 2 new employees, but first we have Nick Full Frontage Charles, who joined as our social media manager. He also does stuff in the esports scene as a Wild Rift commentator. And he's an American we recruited from the Liquid Plus team. And then we have our other hire, which is Brett Evanescence Bledsoe, who you can see on screen waving. He's our business development manager, I don't know. It's a difficult title. He's a longtime fan of Team Curse and TL in League of Legends. That's his burden to bear. Always fourth. Also an American we recruited from the Liquid Plus team. It was very easy to recruit them. It's just like, here's good people. Right. We also promoted some other stuff besides Liquid Plus members. We promoted 2 new main wikis, Age of Empires and Wild Rifts. We promoted 2 new alpha wikis, Brawl Stars and Halo, and we installed 5 wikis, Squadron, Halo, Splitgate, Mobile Legends, Bang Bang, and Sideswipe. That might be Sideswipe Rocket League, I don't know. Rocket League Sideswipe, something like that. Some preliminary 2021 numbers. They're year-over-year technically, so not quite 2021 numbers. And we have 1.6 million new edits made, almost 64,000 new pages created across all our wikis, 4,400 new Discord members. Our edits per page ratio grew by 16%, and we are ranked as the 8th largest wiki farm in the world. We also have some traffic and visitor number growth, and also again preliminary numbers for 2021. And I'm using an index here, that's why it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just compared as an index compared to 2014's numbers. The traffic grew amazingly this year. It's actually the same, it's more growth than the 2 last years' growth combined. It was something like 32% if we talk just percentages, which isn't the absolute highest percentage we've ever seen in growth. But at the same time, it's sustained growth, which is really, really, really nice to see. Visitor numbers grew even more with 47%. And we've had up until last year, we've had a very linear growth in the number of visitors we've had year over year, or every year. Last year we came short of that quite substantially. It was still growth, but it was much less growth than we had anticipated. And this year it's way more growth than we had anticipated. So even with the trend line from 2014 to 2019, we're about 2 years ahead on that like linear progression scale. So there has been a lot new people coming to the wiki this year. And it's across the board as well. It's not just like one wiki made it happen. It's very much across the board. Almost none had a reduction in visitor numbers. Almost all had increase in visitors, which was really, really nice to see. And last year I also brought up or the last PiddyCon, I brought up the device share thing we have between mobile and desktop, that we had seen a very strong trend going up to last year of where mobile was about to overtake desktop as the most common device per page view. This device share is per traffic and not per visitor. Per visitor, mobile is still slightly ahead, so more visitors are coming through on mobile, but more people are looking at pages on desktop. They come back more frequently, and per visit they also spend more time on the site, so check out more pages. But mobile lost 2% points and desktop gained 2% points. Both grew massively though, obviously. As I said, the traffic growth was incredibly high, but desktop is eking out a stronger lead again. Right, and I'll hand it off to Jasper. The first Jasper.
Jasper 1. Wait, let me quickly get this. Yeah. So I'll just talk about the graduation project I did this year together with Liquipedia that covers the end product, which is fantasy esports. Okay, so to give a bit of context, I'm now an alumnus of a study called Communication and Multimedia Design. I did this in Breda, which is located in the Netherlands. And that was basically the last year. I have half a year to do a graduation project where the goal is to make an end product, and it can be very broad in what you're allowed to create. So I came up with the idea, hey, I want to do something with esports. I have a lot of passion for Liquipedia. Let's see and find if I can find a cool thing to do there. So after a bit of chatter, I think what really worked is that Liquipedia A has a lot of data, and there's a lot of user engagement and interaction we could have with that. And I think it's something that seemed a bit unexplored. And I think I wanted to really find something that works with this. Obviously, data, Liquipedia has more than plenty to work with. And for the future, there should be even more data to be had. And what I wanted to do is, how do I get users to interact more with the data, but also to get them to return to some data? Because out of research that I did, basically a lot of people that I talked with is like they view a player once, for example, and then they'll probably not check that player page again for quite some time. So I was like, okay, how can I see if people want to engage with player data? And that sort of turned out, yes, people do like player data, but it has to come to them in sort of an engaging and understandable way. And there I thought, okay, this is something interesting. I want to make this data that we have a lot more presentable. And basically the research I started doing first, like, okay, what's currently being done, both in regular sports, but also esports itself, and what are users currently experiencing around this data. After I came like, okay, I want to do something with this. And the easiest choice I could go with was using gamification to lure people in to keep returning to data and see how can I make this data more interesting and sort of add to their viewing experience. So I started rolling out some concepts, and the first thing I sort of tried out comes a bit from like a supermarket concept that's popular here, where people collect cards of football players. I was like, this could be done for esports, and we could use the wiki to generate these cards. And that's why I sort of started prototyping around it first, like a few paper prototypes, see if people like the cards, how they would interact with them. And that sort of seemed like, okay, this sort of works. Let's try to make a digital interface for it, because that's probably where it's going to be residing. I very much limited myself here to all the current data I could use with the API that was provided. And I made this sort of robust thing that actually pulls data, turns them into cards. You could like navigate through a little globe to see this, navigate to certain countries, get all the players from a certain game. And I presented this to my counselor at the university, and they were like, okay, you spent a lot of effort into this, but it's not really that great. And I should have definitely done more. So that sort of set me back quite a bit, and I have to sort of re-explore new ideas and see like, okay, was it really a good idea? Probably not. Let's see and find something more engaging. And quickly, sort of from this cards and a bit of discussion, I climbed onto the new topic, which was fancy esports. Obviously, because, for example, in Valorant nowadays, for the wiki, we gather a lot more data regarding matches and how we sort of tie this to a player. And I was like, okay, this could be something interesting, or also just for future things for the wiki. Let's see if we can gamify this in a concept that already sort of works, but is not really applied massively to esports as of yet. And this came sort of as, let's see, can we make fancy sports powered by Liquipedia data? So for that, I basically started building a proof of concept, which is just an app basically. Although I didn't actually make a functioning app, it's more so a prototype you can click through. And this is something that I mostly spent most of the remaining time on, just first lay out the basic app, like how will people interact with this? What sort of things can I do? How can I fully fit it to like an esports fan's needs? And certain things that I was going to like, okay, let's make sure it can cover all our games that we cover on the wiki. Let's make sure it can allow users to navigate the leagues that they care about. And let's make sure that the whole game is sort of fun to play, but also does a good way of projecting all of this data. Obviously, because fancy sports is also, you have all this data, and now you want the user to just see it and be like, okay, this is 10 points. This matters to me because the player gained 10 points. So this is where I started experimenting, doing a lot of user tests, continuously growing the product, refining it. And I think that sort of worked out because that proof of concept obviously turned out to be good, and that became my end product, which I can show here. The end result obviously is so Liquipedia powered fantasy leagues. I have a link that you can see in the presentation here. Perhaps someone can share it in the chat as well to easily click it. This link sort of brings you to an overview page that explains the whole project summarized and what the solution does. There's a small trailer. And if you scroll a bit further down the page, there should also be a link to the actual prototype that you can interact with. Yeah, there's also a link to a full document of the research I did, but it's only in Dutch. So that if you're Dutch, you could read it if you're very interested, but it's rather long. Otherwise, it won't really add much. But yeah, I presented this result later live at my uni, and I'm glad to say that that passed. So obviously, I want to end it with a thank you, both to the Liquipedia team for assisting me in the project, but also to the Liquipedia volunteers that I've also asked for help and feedback on the product. And I think that ends it.
Thank you so much. And thank you for spending the time making this project. Right, let's see. Next up will be Jasper Vogan van Riet to talk about the Liquipedia app.
Yeah, that's me. We're doing a Liquipedia app, and I'm just gonna immediately go to the next slide and let you take in the little video we have there and give you a couple seconds to parse that. Right, so I'm going to talk about what we're doing, how we're doing that, and what we need from the wikis and from you as a contributor. So what we're doing is we're not just making a mobile version of Liquipedia. If you think about Liquipedia, then it's essentially a bit of an archive. So if you go to a team page, for example, there's a lot of transfers throughout the years. And for the app, we want to take a bit of a different focus. We want to focus on what's happening now, what's happening in the next couple of weeks, what's just happened. And we want to personalize that for the games, the teams, the tournaments, and the players that you actually care about. If you want, that can be basically anything. But if you just want a selected group of, let's call them entities, so players, tournaments, and teams, then that's possible too. So as you can see here, this is the main screen that you see scrolling down. We call it the feed. And the critical part about this is that you might be used to different esports apps or even sports apps, and they tend to show a list of matches. And we have done something else here. As you can see, we've gone with a feed, which is sort of more similar to social media apps. And why we've done that is we want to support more than just Counter-Strike and the MOBAs. So a lot of those other esports apps and even sports apps, they tend to have just two teams playing against each other with the score, the time, that kind of stuff. That format doesn't allow you to support something like PUBG. If you want to show a PUBG tournament, you can't just show a match. You want to show the whole table, for example. Or think about Smash, where the individual matches are sometimes a little hard to track, so you may want to show something else for the tournament. We came up with a format here that supports all our wikis, and that's indeed the end goal, to support every single Liquipedia wiki. And we're doing that via the format you see here. Of course, you can still click through to tournaments. We have full support of brackets. We have leagues, and you can even dive into like team pages and the transfers that have happened for a team. All of the Liquipedia data will still be in there, but the focus is very much on what's happening now. And you can even imagine a future where we add things like transfers or interviews or even highlight videos all into this feed. Data that is all already available on Liquipedia, but that we can make a lot more use of. And I've been part of the team that worked on this for the past year. And what we need for this is essentially we need to standardize a lot of the templates and modules that are currently in use on Liquipedia. And you may have seen that this has already been happening. And I can explain a little bit more now about why we need that. So imagine, for example, that you as a contributor enter the nationality of a player. You say, okay, this player is from the United States. Then that is saved into the Liquipedia database, the LPDB, which you probably will have heard of, as something like the United States. If another wiki then takes the same input of United States and instead saves US or USA, and every single wiki does it differently, then that's quite a big problem for the app. We just cannot handle all those edge cases. So we need to standardize how things like that are saved, which does mean that we take away some flexibility from what we all have been used to on Liquipedia. So for example, think about how in the info boxes, we sometimes used to just input directly the flag template. That's probably not going to be a thing anymore. Instead, we need to make robust modules and templates that add the flag for you, because otherwise it becomes really hard to store just the language or the country's text. And else we would have to deal with that template in the middle of the database. On top of that, if we don't have a guarantee of quality for the biggest templates and modules like info boxes, if any wiki can just change those modules at any time and even break them, then that means the app loses its data as well. On the wiki, that tends to be a bit more acceptable, but on an app, it's just not going to work. We need the data to be reliable. And because of that, we do have to guarantee the quality of the data that we have stored. So that's why I, along with a few contributors this year, have been putting a lot of effort into standardizing templates and modules, which sometimes does take away some flexibility, but that's sort of a sacrifice for what we're getting from it. It's also the reason, one of the big reasons for Match 2, which you might have heard of, which we're going to dive a little deeper into that later. But Match 2 is our new matches and bracket system. And because of Match 2, we can support full brackets inside this app. Without Match 2, it's not possible. So right now, for example, Match 2 is deployed on Rocket League and not on something like Counter-Strike. The app currently has support of full bracket support in Rocket League, but not in Counter-Strike, and that's all because of Match 2. So we, as Liquipedia, really hope that you as contributors want to help us in getting all these wikis set up, getting everything up to quality so that we can support your wiki too. And I think with that, we can dive into Match 2.
Thank you. Let's do that then. And for that, I'll hand it over to HTTP Alpha. If Andreas is still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Great.
Did you give me access? You were?
Yes. Let me give it again.
Okay.
Or if you want, I can.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, well, I'd like to start with giving you a very brief overview of the whole system of Match 2. It's pretty complicated. Due to the time restraints, I will only show you short images of how the mass of modules basically interact with each other. For example, this one here shows roughly the input processing, pre-input processing. So it shows what the match, map, brackets player, literal opponent, team opponent, solo opponent templates call and what's called from them and so on. Then this image shows you what happens in the input processing. That's a bit more complicated already and completely based on commons. This one is what we use for the display components. It's a bit more complicated than in this picture because sometimes these modules call each other back and forth. So yeah, it's also really complicated. This one shows the additional templates and modules we have for the Match 2 system. These are not directly used in the Match 2 system, but rather in combination with it. For example, the bracket documentation is only on commons to show on the bracket template pages. Or the copy-paste stuff is only so we can generate copy-paste for you, so you can easier get new brackets. As you could see, that's quite a number of modules that interact with each other, and it's pretty fast. If you want to know more about what happens via the Commons module, feel free to ask just ask in the bracket update channel. Okay. Now we will talk about what each wiki has to do in the Match 2 system. There are a couple of modules that each wiki has to set up. First, and the most important is the input module. We, in this case, module match group input custom, because match group input already provides several functions that you can use in that give some defaults already. This module handles all the Wikip's specific input of a match. Then we have module match summary. It determines how the match summary pop-ups should look. Again, here a /base version of that module exists on Commons and provides several classes to make things easier in setting up. Then you need to set up several MediaWiki messages. For that, you will have to ask one of the admins. That's so that certain settings are set and that the base copy-paste templates are there for the template bracket pages on Commons. Then there is stuff to set up if the wiki already used match 1, so the old bracket system, and that's module match legacy. This allows the storage of the match 2 objects also as what match 1 objects, so we have backwards compatibility. Then we have module match group legacy default. It's responsible to map old brackets input so that it can be read by the new system. It defines the default mappings for the old brackets, and it provides some helper functions for the custom mappings. For more information on that, please check out the documentation on Commons. Then we have module matchlist legacy. It's responsible to map old match lists input so that it can be read by the new system, but this time for match lists and not for brackets. This module hugely differs depending on the old match list system we have on the wikis, because we have quite different old systems we have to adjust here accordingly. And then we have some optional modules that should be set up by the wikis. The first one is module get match group copy paste /wiki. I would recommend to set it so you can use the default copy paste and customize it a bit for your wikis. With it, you can query brackets and match list copy paste codes. You will see about that later a bit too. And then we have module opponent display. It handles the opponent display, be it a team player, a 2v2 team, or Archon on StarCraft or whatever. It also handles how the scores are shown. And again, here we have a default module on Commons. So if you only have team and player opponents, and the player opponents don't have races or such stuff like on StarCraft, then you don't actually have to set it up because the Commons version will be enough. Then we have module big match. Module big match is only needed if you want to start using matches pages where you display a single match in great detail. Usually this also needs some adjusting of some other modules like maybe module match group. Depends on the wiki setup a bit too, and then on the setup of big match. Okay, yeah. For additional information, again, please look at the documentation. We have it on Commons at Liquipedia /wiki specific setup. You will find more information on the mentioned modules, a suggested workflow for setting it all up, and information on how the conversion works, and information about custom mappings. Okay, now a few advantages of the system. You will be able to add as many opponents per match as you want. Well, not really, because we have runtime and memory limits, but you know what I mean. The system is independent of opponent types as long as these are set up on the wiki. That means you can have a player versus team, or player versus Archon, or player versus 2 players and such stuff without a problem. Each match groups, that means brackets, match list, and single match, use the same basic input structure. Each match group has a dedicated ID, so it can be referred to properly, wow. Which is also a big advantage for the app. Again, it's basic for having match support in the app, and it gives more standardization across the wikis. Okay, the input structure is pretty easy. Both brackets and match lists basically share the same input structure. Only the parameter names into which the matches are set into are different. I mean, you see that it's basically the same, right? All new matches are wrapped inside a template match. The match input looks basically as shown here. That means you have opponent templates, be it a solo opponent for a single player, or team opponent for a full team, or 2v2 opponent, or whatever. You can theoretically, again, add as many opponents as you want. Then you have map templates, where you put in the data of the map or game of that one round. And then you have match-specific parameters like best of streams, meaning Twitch, Trovo, and so on. Finish date. Okay, then we have some helpers to make things easier. You can set up a copy-paste generators that generate empty brackets or match lists or single match codes for usage on tournament pages. We provide the basic functions via comments. The wikis only have to adjust the wiki specifics and create the form pages. Additional for brackets, the bracket templates on commons provide a basic copy-paste code too, but it's less customizable than with the generators. As you can see in these pictures, you can select which opponent you want. You can select the best of for the matches and how many opponents you need per match and so on. Again, here you can add additional stuff on a wiki basis. Okay, then as we already mentioned, a huge advantage of the new system is that creating new brackets is way easier now. We have a bracket designer for that. The bracket designer is also nice to find bracket names, actually, because most brackets should be created by now. Most. At the moment, the bracket designer is locked to Reviewer Plus. We have plans to enable it for editors too, but without the code generation you see here. For editors, it will look basically like this. So it will not generate the code, or rather not show it. And you still get the bracket name and can go to the bracket template. And last but not least, as Wogan already mentioned, we started to standardize lots of stuff across the wikis. Lots of info boxes and such have now base modules on commons and only need slight custom versions on the wikis. And we started to use GitHub for that, to easier have reviews and enforce a certain quality of code.
Thank you so much, HTTP. And I hope you will check out all the cool links. I think that we posted them all in chat. If not, we should be able to share them in the bracket setup channel as well. And then on to betting integration postmortem by Brett, or with Brett.
All right. Everyone's favorite topic. What you've all been waiting for. For everyone that doesn't know me already, which should be just about everyone prior to this, I am Brett Evanescent Bledsoe, the new business developer here at Liquipedia. And since I've joined the team in April, I've been intimately involved in all things betting, good, bad, and ugly. So I am uniquely privileged to be in a position to share our insights and pull back the veil, if you will, behind the decision-making processes that have brought us to where we are today. Hopefully, I'll be able to adequately address the concerns and questions you have regarding all of this, and if not, we'll have the Q&A at the end, where I and the rest of the team will be more than happy to field whatever burning questions you have within reason. As far as timeline goes, let me show, there we go. All right. As most of you are aware, or many of you at least, the decision to bring aboard a betting partner was finalized near the beginning of the year and soft announced in the previous PiddyCon and through a handful of semi-infamous Reddit posts. We aim to be up and ready for launch before this year's Animajor, and through an impressive amount of work and flexibility from the actual Rockstar developers here at Liquipedia, some of which are in chat right now, we were more than ready to launch by that time. However, for a variety of reasons, things didn't quite operate as smoothly as initially projected. By the end of July, this had reached a tipping point of sorts, where technical and performance issues had come to a fever pitch, and we were at the end of our creative rope in terms of solutions that would sustain the partnership. This came from both sides, not just with our partner Vi, but also from our own, and we realized this wasn't necessarily a viable solution for any of the parties involved, and therefore we made the choice to exit the partnership and allowed Vi to maintain their presence for the international before finally concluding the partnership at the end of October. At this point, we were left with something of a sizable difference between our initial expectations and our actual results, and myself and some others on the team began to look for a new potential partner, and that resulted in an extremely 11th hour deal being struck with GGBet for the end of the year, starting at the beginning of TI. As that has since come to a close, we are now at the point where we are taking stock and thoroughly evaluating and vetting firms before making any new commitments. I can share that while there are conversations ongoing, nothing has gone beyond the preliminary exploratory phase. And moving on to the good old part, what went wrong? And ultimately, I think there were a lot of wide-eyed beliefs held at the outset, and frankly, we were just unprepared for the harsh realities of what less than expected results would bring in terms of impact. As the Mike Tyson quote goes, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Based on our initial underperformance, I think we were constantly playing catch up and failed to meaningfully push back on our partner to have our agreements fully realized. Vi was unfortunately unable to meet the technical requirements and support that something of this magnitude required, and we didn't push back hard enough to get data sharing from our partner to help combat match fixing on Liquipedia, like we had alluded to. More importantly than that, though, we, and primarily myself, regrettably did not hold ourselves accountable as far as the GGBet partnership went. Although it was extremely late in incubation, which required a lot of last-second decisions to be made, the problem mainly existed around our communication before and during the integration being woefully lacking, and sometimes not even existent. And additionally, we failed to imprint the most important aspects of the integration on the partner, as was pointed out by some eagle-eyed members of the community, with dubious matches and tournaments being listed at certain points. In spite of all this, there were some things that did go right. There are definitely positives. Our development team, like I mentioned, proved that they were more than capable of working under pressure and did a fabulous job given the time constraints. Not given the time constraints, they did a fabulous job anyways. The integration itself was, for the most part, weaved very seamlessly and unobtrusively into the user experience for Liquipedia. In fact, as a business guy myself who's concerned with ad performance, there is an argument that to be made that it was too seamless. We feel like we've done an excellent job at protecting our at-risk users, as only those who consent to viewing the integration will see anything relating to betting at all. And in spite of the way that it concluded, we definitely it seemed that the integration had shown consistent growth over time, and given the right partner, could certainly be something that has financial value for the future of Liquipedia. Ultimately, this culminates in what have we learned? The most important takeaway for myself and the Liquipedia business team has been to stick to our principles. This is what got us in hot water near the end when we cut corners and to enable GGBet to be activated on time for the international. Although it was unfortunate and clearly preventable, there's definitely a through line here that all parties need to have a true understanding of what a partnership actually entails with any firms that come aboard. even if that means passing up on more lucrative opportunities, and possibly, if the right partner does not actually exist, ending the integration outright. I want to be very, very clear and share that this must make sense for us to do it again. The long-term existence of the betting integration is not guaranteed, but it also isn't necessarily going away. We are extremely and peculiarly passionate about hearing your feedback, both positive and negative. Seeing as how obviously you are all the most important aspect of Liquipedia, there will always be an open invitation for any concerns and questions beyond just the Q&A that we're having today. And in fact, I would directly encourage you to reach out to me on Discord or Twitter. My handle for Discord is up there, as well as my Twitter @ as well. Do not feel about the pings or DMs. I don't care. I would rather hear anything you have to say, positive or negative, than you just stew quietly about it. So bring it on. I've got a feeling that most of what you have to ask is going to be addressed in Q&A. So at that point, we might as well go ahead and turn over to that point. Saleh has, I don't know if we've already posted up what we have for the Q&A, but we will be fielding questions there. Feel free to ask whatever you have. So
I have collected a couple of questions, yeah.
excellent.
And the first one was Fenrir, who started very early on. And sadly, it's a question for me to answer, I think. But is there any plans for Liquipedia to expand from just being an esports wiki into covering things like football or basketball? Very short answer is yes. That's the very short answer. We'll be putting our efforts into those sorts of things when it makes viable sense, which at the moment we have so many things that we're prioritizing, or we have so many opportunities to pursue, so we need to prioritize them correctly, and that's what we're trying to do. But it's definitely something we're thinking about very seriously. Then we had a couple of questions around the app. If Jasper or I, maybe we should take them. I don't know. We'll see. Carla asked, is the app a completely new thing or an extension of the super secret calendar GG/tracker app?
Yeah, it's a new thing from the ground up.
Then Arupravi asked when we get Alpha Liquipedia app.
We don't know an exact date yet, but obviously we will be involving like all the contributors there every part of the way.
Yes, agreed. That's the very most likely way we'll take care of that, or almost certainly. Gerke asked, what is the cost of the LPDB data disappearing bug and how did the fix go? I think that's a question for none of us here. That's a Fontax or Darkrai. So I think I've seen Fontax in the chat. If he wants to send us a long explanation, I think I wouldn't understand it anyways. But okay, issues are timeouts, and they have not been able to fix them yet. Was the quick answer in chat. Corvus asked, how will the community be informed about future betting partners?
That is a me question. So going forward, like I said, there are a few different firms we're talking to, just very, very early stages, very preliminary. Like we alluded to at the very beginning, we are making sure that we have a like-minded partner that we're going to go into it. If we go into it again, it will be with someone that understands our vision and does the absolute best to actually meet our level of effort. We know a little bit more now, having gone through this and seen what does not work and seen some of the warning signs. So communication regarding future partners would be I mean, we would obviously enter into more advanced talks before that, but then we would be communicating with you guys clearly. So where that would probably be on Discord. This isn't something we'd be tweeting about or anything like that, but it would be probably me sharing, here's what we're looking at. Again, we're trying to negate abuse cases and issues like that. So hearing feedback and reception on potential partners is definitely going to be something that we'd be open to. We're not going to be closed up until the point where we announce the partner. I think there'd be a point where we would be comfortable in sharing our thoughts before we actually entered into a partnership in full-fledged. So, there's as far as exactly when in the process, I can't say for sure, but it won't be at the end, and it'll be before we've committed to the decision. So, that's hopefully I've sufficiently answered that.
And Rockside asked, are we a large enough partner for a betting site to have a dedicated open line of communication with them, i.e. a client manager assigned to us, presumably among others, or are we going through a general customer service email address type of contact?
We absolutely are big enough for that, and we do. Part of the difficulty, and I'll share this. Part of the difficulty in what went wrong with Vi is that we did have open lines of communication, and Liquipedia and Team Liquid as a whole is, at least in the space, I'd have to imagine, is pretty flexible and communicative in terms of, hey, if something's going on, we're good at relaying that information in a proper and timely manner. And furthermore, if there is a technical issue, it's not too much effort for our devs to tackle it, get it taken care of in a very short order. That same flexibility and haste is not shared across the board. So we did have feedback that we would give when we needed it. We had a client manager, we had direct contacts, we had multiple chats, group chats, email chains, the whole 9 yards. And even if they were responding to that in a very timely manner and prompt manner, it wasn't necessarily being fixed in an appropriately timely manner. There's a lot more work that went into this, I think, than was imagined from all parties. And I think we were more than capable of handling that. And I don't know that our partner was necessarily able to do that with their level of flexibility they already had. So it presented a very unforeseen roadblock at times.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up question to this one. So if the former, which was a yes, can we try to set something up where only matches listed on our site are listed in their ads? That seems like the best two-way street where they give us information why something isn't shady if they want us to include it, but don't violate our standards otherwise. Short answer is kinda yes, I guess. Not exactly that implementation, but that's definitely the route we want to go, where we will not host anything that's not up to our standards. But ideally, it shouldn't be even that close. Like it should be a much better experience for anyone seeing the integration.
Yeah, I'll share some thoughts behind the highlighted nature as it was intended. And it was set up to be. It was supposed to be truly that highlighted matches of, hey, this is like Na'Vi versus G2 or NCS, or something secret versus OG in Dota. Something large, sizable that people were interested in, people cared about. Something even for non-betting users to say, hey, this match is happening, as a reminder. This is a big deal. This is going on right now. Something where you actually had meaningful value as far as what highlighted matches are happening. Due to, and this goes into the end of technical differences between us and our partners, we didn't feel comfortable editorializing the content that they had, even though it would have probably been easier for them But as part of the guidelines that we talked about, we mentioned that Liquipedia was not going to be involved in that decision making and picking and choosing games for them. We feel like that's a little bit of a slippery slope, and although that is a fallacy, there is some veracity to it. Once we start making concessions on X and Y, it becomes easier to do Z, and then from there on, it becomes more and more of a problem. So that was their decision making behind not giving that information to our partners as far as ranking matches along the Liquipedia tier lists. We did make suggestions to them that, hey, you can use our pre-existing, like, look, if it gets ranked here, you can use that to populate your highlighted matches. And like I said, with technical issues, they just had a lot of workloads that weren't even related to Liquipedia necessarily and weren't able to do so. This was one of the things, and this was most problematic with GGBet when they came aboard. As far as what I said, we didn't ensure that our partner with GGBet was fully ideologically aligned. This is what I'm talking about. They weren't curating matches for that really at all, and that was a kind of a game of whack-a-mole where people would see the matches online. I'd report them like, hey, can you please get this off? This is dubious, potential abuse case here. We want to make sure this is not what we're highlighting. This is not what we want to sell to our users. And so moving forward, this will be something that we ensure is implemented in some capacity, that won't happen again.
Thank you. Right. Are there any, Carvis asked, are there any additional projects in the work for monetizing Liquipedia, or is it just focused on betting integration at the moment? Do you want to take that, Brett?
Sure. Short answer is yes. There are other things. There are things in various stages of gestation. There are some very early on things. Obviously, we have the Liquipedia mobile app, which is coming along, and I think there are probably some other questions relating to that too. I'm not going to try and get too deep into it, but there will be stuff there. Something we've been focusing on as of late is trying to curate gear for players and affiliate linking. This was floated around in various capacities, and we have some new ideas behind that. And I know there are other sites in the space, not in our direct competition necessarily, but other sites in the space that curate settings and gear of pro players. We feel it makes a lot of sense to have a one-stop shop, if you will, where you're coming to see Simple's profile, his achievements, and you see all of his gear listed out. And then furthermore, if you'd like to, you can pursue a link to purchase it as well. As you guys can imagine, those pages get a lot of traffic when we do have a tournament where a player of note or a surprise team is coming out of nowhere. We've seen this most recently with Crew at Valorant. All of a sudden, these players went from virtually unknown to minor celebrity folk heroes in the Valorant space, and there was a lot of demand for the settings and gear these players are using. And some of the difficulty can be finding that, especially in the non-major regions, like in the US and in Europe. There's a lot of that already existing. A lot of people are already familiar with Liquipedia. Sometimes players add their own without even being asked. But sometimes with the smaller regions, I am sending DMs to people on Twitter saying, hey, what keyboard are you using? So that's something we're moving forward and we're putting out across multiple wikis. We've already seen a lot of great work in Rocket League and on Rainbow Six of putting that in. It's some fantastic work by some of our users and contributors. So that's been super valuable. So that's something that is definitely being looked at for monetization purposes going forward. There are a few others, but obviously with something like a site, like a wiki site, there are a limited amount of creative ways we can utilize our site in terms of that aren't also being exploitative. So we're very conscious of that and trying to make it make sense if we're going to go forward doing something.
Yeah, there's some more work on the ad side where we're trying to get more direct deals, like campaigns from companies directly who are like, we want to run a campaign, which can increase revenue. It's not a game changer. Part of why betting is still very much something to investigate is definitely because the potential of revenue there is by far the biggest increase. Habnix asked, there are some more questions around monetization, so I think we can maybe try and get them all off or out and done with. Is it planned to get away from showing ads when Liquipedia will be monetized from other ways? Most likely no. It probably change how we try and look at ad revenue, but it's more so than that. We're maybe looking at having like a ad-free version or something like that, like a premium version. And that was the other question. Adil Satar asked, what is the monetization model for the mobile app? Will there be a premium model or only ads like right now?
The monetization for mobile is still a little bit up in the air. We're having some discussions, trying to review what best practices are for mobile in an app. We're not going to be bombarding users with ads. I can say that much. I can definitely say it with confidence. As far as a premium, like a paid version where you do not have any ads or something along that line, that is a very high likelihood of that happening. As far as further specifics, I don't have a ton more, but there will probably be two different versions in that regard. As in, there will be a paid experience where you are not seeing those ads, and then there will be a free with in-content ads. In the video that Vogan showed, there was an ad, a sample ad for Dota Dragon's Blood. There's an in-content ad. If you use Facebook, or I think less so Twitter, as the in-content ads that are somewhat seamlessly integrated, you can think along that line. It's not going to be gaudy or anything like that, but that's where we're angled right now as far as advertisement on the app. So.
And then, staying with the app a little bit, Gigi Menes asked, will Liquipedia app just cover main wikis, or are you planning to cover alpha wikis? I can answer that, I guess. Yes, we are definitely planning on covering alpha wikis too, if they are good enough.
Yeah, right now the main constraint is the technical part, whether we can even support them.
Yeah, it's like the one we have been using LPDB for match updates on Liquid Plus. So they have been kind of our biggest use case for external use case for LPDB. And in their use case, they want to know when matches are happening for Team Liquid. And we have noticed on certain wikis, we don't have matches being closed close enough to when they are being started. And I think that something along those lines is what we're going to use to evaluate if a wiki is ready to have the app integration or being added into the app. If it's too often times that matches are just like live and they just stay live for 12 hours, then it's not something that is updated quickly enough for something like an app where it's very much direct. Like you will get a ping, a notification when a match goes live, you'll get a or a match finishes, depending on your settings. So to support that, we need kind of decently good consistency. And Katana MVP asked, will dark mode be available next year? I guess that's also a me question, and the aim is definitely for us to make that happen. Again, we need to work more on our template unification so we can get all our color.
Hard-coded colors.
Yes, all the hard-coded colors out of the wikis. We should.
Match 2 is part of that too, right?
Mhm.
Because the old matches have hard-coded colors.
Yeah. We could probably go around that, but like, why? It's a very, very big task to do in addition to also doing match 2. So removing the hard-coded colors is the big blocker here. And we will have most likely an alpha or beta stage where you can opt in to see the feature and try it out and see all the places where it's not working, because there will be quite a lot of places where there are still hard-coded colors that or colors that are not good.
I mean, Navbox, for example, is a big example. It's used on quite a lot of pages, and it has hard-coded colors in it, sadly.
Yeah, that's what we get for getting a media wiki template or Wikipedia template. Right.
Or modules.
Yeah, or modules. Sebastian Adico Quintanilla? Or is it Quintanilla? I will never learn how to say double L's in Spanish correctly. Asked a couple of questions. A while back it was asked if the Age of Empires wiki, if there will be a chance to have some cookie or user saved setting for the main page tournament panel so that people can come back and keep their filters. Yes, that is for sure a feature we want to integrate as well. Not just this kind of thing, but I mean, dark mode, for example, will also be one of those things that you don't have to be logged in to actually access. The favorites we already have in the dropdown on wikis, that is local storage or cookie saving, and we want to do more of that. If you have preferences to see, for example, if you want to always see rosters within teams, maybe we could make that a stored thing as well. If you only want to see the like top tier matches in the match dropdown or match list on the main page, that could also be a saved thing. But we need to do that in a very clever way, so we don't exceed the total storage capacity and build weird issues for ourselves later down the line. And last year I brought up the idea of editorial content that is made by Liquipedia. This year saw the release of a few community updates and an article by me on tl.gg about AoE Wiki. I wanted to ask if that idea is still a maybe or if it has gathered some more traction. It's still a maybe. There's definitely more traction, but it's still a maybe, sadly. There's a lot of stuff that we need to work on if we want to have like a good place. Like I myself think we should have a blog section where anyone, not just like the employees or even volunteer staff, but anyone who's a contributor to Liquipedia can add to and talk about their wiki, talk about a thing they have added, talk about whatever that's Liquipedia related and post it there. That still needs to be set up and worked on. And then third question, are there any plans to have a way for wikis to request programmer time for some features that might be too big for a single contributor to tackle? Yes, I don't know if we need it to be very specific, like a clear structured, here's how to get a feature request through. Feature requests should though be some, like, we are very much open to hearing feature requests and we do want to try and accommodate them. I mean, as I said with some other stuff, it's all about what priorities we do and what the cost time commitment for certain features are, and the applicability of those features on other wikis. How universal is the feature requested, and like how important is it? Stuff like that will bump it up in or bump it down in priority. Let's see. Twister92200FR asked, what will happen to dead wikis like Artifact? we have an idea. I can't remember the name now. It's a name Richie thought up.
Was it Dormant?
Yes, Dormant. There we go. Dormant wikis, where we will put the wikis that are very low activity into sort of a fourth wiki category. So we already have the pre-alpha, alpha, main wiki. So there will be a fourth one called Dormant that they're gonna get into. And yes, questions about food are ignored. AR1014 asks, does Liquipedia plan to have more presence on other social media platforms, such as Instagram and Facebook? Instagram is a bit harder. No, obviously not impossible, but Facebook is definitely up there. Especially the Southeast Asian community is very much centered around using Facebook rather than Twitter, and so we do want to include it, or include those platforms. It's definitely part of our social media plans, and not just Instagram and Facebook. We're also obviously looking at stuff like TikTok. What else was it? Reddit are also pretty big platforms for us to bite our teeth into and get a bigger presence on. What did Tefus ask? I don't see Tefus asking any question.
He asked, when are we combining StarCraft 1 and 2 and adding Dota 1 to Dota 2?
I don't think we should probably merge StarCraft 1 and Brood War at this point. It's just a massive task that doesn't give a big enough payoff. Adding Dota 1 content to Dota 2 wiki, I think there actually is already some, but completely fine. I think we need potentially to make some upgrades to the info box template to be able to display game type, but that exists in the info box template across multiple other wikis. It's not at all a difficult feature to add. Could even include HON on the Dota 2 wiki, actually, since that's also not ever likely to get its own wiki now with HON gone for good. Androxad asks, will there be separate treatment for dormant wikis, like dormant main wiki, dormant alpha, or dormant pre-alpha? No, they will all just be put into dormant. A dormant pre-alpha should not really happen. Like the key for something to get out of pre-alpha shouldn't really depend on the dormantness of it. So, and for the other two, it's very much the same sort of system, like the same judgment to get out of dormant or to get back into main. Really, realistically. Fenrir asked, is there a timeline for when the LPDB API is going to be available? During Liquid Hacks, it was mentioned you could already apply for API key. Is that still true? So the Liquid Hacks people could apply for an API key. There is most likely the LPDB API is going to be live after the Liquipedia app is launched. And fairly close after. Not like a massive time after, but a couple of weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months at most. So there's a timeline. Have I missed any interesting questions?
You missed a question about Kano's project.
Oh, no.
Basically, whether it's going to be available.
I mean, very much not for the very future. Obviously, there's a couple of issues that there would be with it, basically in how we get the data. There's only a few wikis that actually are able to get as much intricate data as is needed to in order to support it, because it very much relies on player performance, and the only few wikis that currently track the data to make such statistics would be Valorant, maybe some other games that use APIs to pull stats. And obviously, same as for the app, it would still require a whole lot of stuff to be set up in the back end. And there's also the question that arises with this thing. It pulls data. How do we make sure that it's obviously verified data? People could mess with it because it's still, you're pulling things from a wiki as opposed to a set source.
So we need API access from the game.
Or very, very committed volunteers.
Very committed volunteers. I like that sound of that, though. Let's see. When will Liquipedia merchandise be released? I didn't actually see who asked that, because it was a quote by Fenrir.
I think his name is below it.
Oh, Digondio. When? So I still have in my possession a couple of, like, not drafts, what do you call them? Like, test runs of Liquipedia merch. It's definitely in my 2022 plans to get that sorted. So yeah, when? Hopefully next year. It will require a lot of discussions with the Team Liquid merchandise or apparel team. What we can do, what's if we can work with them, or if we should go off and do something on our own and stuff like that. I too have a light blue wiki shirt. It's glorious. It's based on a pun that I made, so it's terrible for most people, I think, but I like it. I think I haven't. There's not many questions right now.
There's a couple
There's a
in
question
Twitch.
here. What timeline do the devs project for the standardization of the wikis? Which I think is a good question.
Oh,
And I can answer it.
please
I think.
do.
Because basically it's the most important part of it is kind of done, which is basically the info boxes, because the info boxes go on what I would call the entity pages. So we're talking about the players, the teams, the tournaments, the series, even companies. Those are really some of the most important data that we're storing, and that really needs to be high quality. And that's all done essentially. It might need some tweaks for your specific wiki, but all of the core parts are done, and we can deploy that really quickly. And then on top of that is Match 2 needs to be done and just needs to be put onto more wikis. Requires a lot of testing, a lot of migration of the old brackets. But the basics, the core part of the code is there too. So in terms of the timeline, it mostly depends on all of you. We will need you to help us get that stuff up for your wiki.
I think prize pool is one bigger one we should tackle too, right?
Yes.
That's
That's
probably
still to do, but it's the only bigger one, I think.
that's
still
probably
to
the
do.
only one left. There's a couple others like transfers, but they're not as important right now, because as you've seen, the app doesn't have priority for us right now. Yeah, we really want to get that stuff up as quickly as possible, really. Is there
then
anything more you have on that, Eric, or is that fine?
no, I mean, I think we also want to standardize the prize pool template and modernize it.
There are tests on StarCraft 2 at the moment to semi-automated even. Like automatically fill in placement from match 2 data.
Mhm.
So if that works out good and we get a standardized code of it, that would be great, I think.
Yeah. I can imagine it needs a couple of tweaks. Like, it needs to have the ID of the final brackets, so you know which one is the final, if there's multiple on a page and stuff, right? But that would be cool. And yeah, we definitely need something that's very standardized across the whole wiki. There's so many different, or I think they are almost completely copy pasted these days, but so it should be easy to even use the old one, but there's so many templates there to make it run.
Yeah, and just to take away some confusion, I haven't seen it, but if there is some, it doesn't have to mean that all the wikis have the exact same display in terms of what you're seeing on the, for example, the price pool or the info boxes. Basically means that the code that's running in the background is the same, which means we can guarantee things like data quality for the app. But for example, in the new info boxes, you can still change basically everything for your specific wiki. So it doesn't mean that we're making all the wikis the exact same and you're losing out on showing certain data to the users that visit your wiki. It's mostly about ensuring data quality. And also just making sure that we don't have 20 wikis with 20 different templates, as most of you will be aware of, with all slightly different tweaks to those templates. Now we just have one version, which is great.
Yeah, it will obviously mean much more conversations around changing any templates, any one template on like the main, like on commons.
I mean, by now we all have it in the GitHub.
Yeah,
so
but no,
there's
like,
a pull request. It's discussed via that automatically.
No, what we mean is that if you have an info box, for example, we now need, if we have a certain format of showing it to users, we might have to have that be the same across all the wikis. And if one wiki does it differently, well, then there might be a discussion there.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I mean, it's definitely for the future of the whole project. The more new wikis we can get, or new scenes we can get into Liquipedia, the better. And the lower the threshold is to enter Liquipedia, the better. And so having the standardized, unified code in the background running across everything will make setting up new wikis way easier.
Yeah, we've already seen it with Mobile Legends, for example, where we were just able to tweak a few things and then deploy the whole thing. And it was using our new standardized templates and modules basically immediately. And because of that, we were able to pull it into the app immediately as well.
Yep, was really nice to see, and that is, I mean, that's the future we hope to have. Like that, there's not a lot of work. It's actually less work to set everything up and to make it unique for the wiki you're on, because most of the time there's not too many unique things. I saw a couple of questions. That aren't being answered in the thread itself. What are the ramifications on Hungrybox being a co-owner of Liquid now? Does that in any way affect Liquipedia? No. Team Liquid doesn't have really any say in the particulars of data on the wiki. Like, we have multiple Nazgul, Victor Goossens, the co-CEO and founder of Team Liquid, has his own page on, I think, 2 wikis. He doesn't have a say in what goes on his page. Well, 3, I think. I think he might have a page on the esports wikis as well, or the esport wiki as well. We're not gonna change content for any owner of the company, I guess.
Even I have my page, but if I did something weird or something, then that's going up there. I don't have a choice.
I mean, I as with anyone, like if it's unfair things, then we might want to remove it. But yeah, besides vandalism, don't do crazy shit, Jasper, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, about, I guess, just a quick note around the match 1 versus match 2. If there are brackets that don't exist for match 2 that exist for match 1, we want to add them. And that's why HEP showed this bracket creator earlier that we will make available for anyone who's editor up. So you can add them in yourself very easily.
Actually, the creating of the templates is still Reviewer Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you said, we want to bring it down to editor.
So they can use it for searching.
Oh, searching, they can't actually change it?
The idea is that they can't copy, that they don't see the generated code.
Okay.
Because sometimes the generator doesn't work 100% correct, so you have to manually adjust some things to not have a broken bracket.
Okay.
And reviewers are usually more capable of that.
Yes. So then you need to ping a reviewer to help get you a bracket if it's missing.
I mean, most should exist by now.
Yeah, I assume that most do. There would be very few weird brackets that will need to be manually added. I'm totally not thinking about the weird Rocket League brackets right now. Was
Rocket
it
I think
the chase?
yeah, that's the one
legendary.
that doesn't exist on match 2 yet, I think, but everything else should.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the... It almost breaks logic, that bracket. Anyhow. I don't think I see any more questions. Unless I'm obviously blind. I guess I'm ignoring Sam Tox's question about the sexiest former Liquipedia editor.
There was another one by Adiko, the fourth one.
I would say Maeve, by the way. Okay, Nazgul does not have his own page. Great. Cool stuff. Is there any plan to make editable bracket for visitors to edit to predict what will happen in a tournament? Oh, like a bracket contest. Yes. I think there was actually another question around the same sort of topic. Rather than betting to have bracket prediction stuff. I would like it. I would like to have it so people can guess or cheer vote. Because it's kind of like a popularity contest if there's nothing at stake. It's kind of like betting if there is something at stake, but I don't think we can put anything up for like grabs. Except like virtual points, but they are pretty hard to figure out how to do. But we do bracket contests. We might make them happen in a more interesting way that you can vote on any match that hasn't started yet or something.
I mean, they have to be redone completely anyways for the new system, right?
Yeah, this would be more on the front end as well. So it's like every visitor can just vote, and then it sends a thing to the back end saying how many people have voted. Kind of. So a pretty basic, not really.
I mean, you could store some additional data points via match 2 implementation and then query them.
You mean like if we were to do like the bracket contest system right now, where you have on like a user page, you create the brackets again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking more on the front end, so you just have a button to click when you see the actual bracket on the actual tournament page, and you just can vote who you think will win. Just some pretty basic system there to just share some. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, the bracket system does need to be, the bracket contest system we have needs to be completely redone for us to be able to use it going forwards with bracket 2. Last year, Liquipedia sent goodies to Silver Plus contributors. Do you guys plan on have that in the future as well? Maybe twice in 1 year? Um, that was very much dependent on Team Liquid being like, hey, here's a pot of gold. How would you like to distribute it? But we do want to set something up. It won't be twice a year. It will be a bit more, hopefully, way more often, but not for everyone then, but more like individual. But that's my, again, 2022 plans and targets, which was 2021 plans that have gotten pushed because of other things. Right. Never too many Jaspers. That's a lie. This was already it was too many in this meeting already. I couldn't keep up. I failed.
I had 3 in total in my classes, like most of high school.
Nice. Yeah, we had 2 Erics in my class, and actually 2 Andreases as well.
Did we already have the coin level question?
Oh, that the coin level is stuck. That's also a Fontex question. Does he know why it's stuck? When will it be unstuck?
I think the bot is just not collecting the data, right?
No, I think it is. I think I get actually.
The edits are collected.
Yeah, I think I can see the updated score of the top 1,000 people, and it gets updated every month. So it should, I think.
Edits are updated, yeah, every 2 hours or something.
Oh no, like the actual score. I get an email with all people's scores to me every month from the server. I might be wrong though. It might not actually be updated, and I just failed to see.
I mean, the coin level is stuck.
Uh,
my bot did over 10,000 edits this month and didn't gain a percent.
Yeah, but like Fontax said, we will definitely get to it. The coin levels stuff should be updated. Otherwise, no one can get into Silver Plus chat and stuff like that.
I mean, most of it is now also unlocked with reviewer, right? Editor.
You don't get access to a specific chat for editor, which might be something we want to fix. But at the same time, what's the point of Silver Plus then? But Silver Plus should most likely happen before editor anyways, so. I think that's it then. Unless I missed something. No? Well, in that case, I'd like to thank all you who came to view, and especially all who came to present. And yeah, there should be another PiddyCon early 2021. 2022, thank you. I forget years. I'm too old. I'm 40 now, so my memory is gone. I will be off on paternity leave for a while, so it will happen after that. Thank you, Brett. And yeah. Bye, guys.